welcome back to the Who Are You to Lead Anyway podcast from Mastering Skills to Navigate Leadership in Life, episode 23. Today, I want to talk about people pleasing. You know, the piece of us with the tendency to prioritize others' needs and desires over our own. The version of us that we hear saying, yes, yes, when there's another version of us screaming, no, no, or hell no. And then our mind just explodes with all of these expletives inside of us. So before we dive in and explore, I want to acknowledge the strengths of the pleaser. The people pleaser is someone who is empathetic, understanding, and thoughtful, aware of the needs and feelings of others, and give of their time, attention, help, and support. And I also want to be transparent with you and say that I am a work in progress from a people pleaser perspective as well. And I continue to do my own work in this area. It has become incredibly fascinating and also humbling how much I am learning about myself when I am preparing these episodes for you. So I am not perfect. I don't have everything all figured out. And also, I can share insights that can be really useful and helpful for you. And that's what I intend to do today. So while people pleasing may seem like a positive trait, and it has positive traits to it, it can also lead to several negative outcomes over time. So today I want to talk about three things: why we people please and why it's important to notice, how we know when we are people pleasing, and how to avoid the pitfalls for avoiding people pleasing as a leader. So why do we people please? Well, we have a desire to be liked, a strong desire to be liked, to be accepted, and to feel assured and reassured from other people. We fear being rejected and or being in conflict with other people. And we lack self-confidence to ask for what we need from others. Those are the simple answers. So pleasers spend time, energy, and resources to keep things harmonious. And the reasons we people please are incredibly complex and can become a vicious cycle to break. So in addition, there are a couple of watch-outs that I want to touch on specifically, which are rescuing and sacrificing. And I'm going to paint a simple picture of each of those. So imagine for a moment that we stop to talk to a direct report and we ask for a status update on something. Doesn't matter what it is. They then tell us about a problem, and we take on the responsibility of solving that said problem for them, not with them, because if we do it with them, it's something else. And if we do this instead of letting them solve it on their own, that is when we are rescuing. Now, you might be saying, well, what's the difference? Knowing the difference depends on the situation and our intention. And the simplest way that I can describe rescuing is as the takeover. As a leader, when we take over or intervene to save someone from a difficult situation, we are rescuing and we are robbing the person from their own growth. Now, as a coach, I am pretty passionate about this because what's in the way is the way of learning our own lessons, building our own sufficiency and our own confidence. Not to mention, doing someone else's work is not the goal here. In the world of work, employees receive pay in exchange for services rendered. Let's let them give what they have been hired to give. And as a leader, your responsibility is to lead, not to please. So a quick hack for rescuing is to ask, is this their responsibility? And then, is this person capable and willing to do this on their own, especially if you are their leader? If the answers to these are yes, then your role, our role, is to step back and provide leadership support and empower them to take ownership. We can do this by clearly communicating, hey, I'm not wanting to overstep here, or I don't want to get in the way of your learning and your growth. And communicating in this way creates boundaries. It gives autonomy, ownership, and space for mistakes, learning, and growth. Now, if they ask for assistance or to remove an obstacle, and if that's for you to do that instead, and everyone will win. Now, I want to touch on sacrificing. So when we are sacrificing, we are prioritizing the needs of other people over our own. which can impact our own well-being. So if we were to say yes instead of no, either when we don't want to do something, or in an attempt to avoid a conflict, we're likely taking on too much work or neglecting asking for what we need. Now, I'm learning that expectations in relationships really help us stay mentally and emotionally well. And this also means the expectations we have of ourselves. So, why is it important to notice when we're people pleasing? Well, it's important so that we can manage this self-sabotaging behavior. When we raise our awareness to our own habits and behaviors, we can discover how much people-pleasing we are actually doing beyond the times when we choose to help people because it makes us happy, truly happy, or brings us joy. In other words, when we don't have or place a condition on someone else. So we can recognize if we're sabotaging ourselves by noticing if the emotions that we are feeling are negative, if we're feeling frustration, overwhelm, or anger. And resentment specifically is an indicator of a boundary being crossed. At least it is for me. And I've read this in multiple books, so I'm pretty confident that I'm accurate in my statement there. So admitting that we're indirectly trying to gain acceptance, reassurance, affection, and love can feel really hard. And if we have to have more meaningful relationships, if we want to have more meaningful relationships, we have to feel the hard. We have to muster up the courage and become more comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to be able to ask for what we need. And so how can we know if we're a people pleaser? Well, I have 10 different ways that you can know. The first is we don't say no. We turn ourselves inside out and upside down trying to please someone when they ask us if we can do something. And we don't say yes or no, which is even worse because to them, that's a yes. So little side story, growing up, whenever I would ask for something, the automatic response I got was, we'll see, which always meant no. So when I was raising my own children, it was really important for me to be clear about the yeses that I gave and the nos that I gave. So another way that we can tell is when we're always overextended, when we put others' needs ahead of our own or get over involved in things that maybe don't even concern us or accommodate the needs of others all of the time, that leads to overextension. The third way to know is we're prioritizing being liked and we agree or pretend to agree versus speaking up in a meeting, for example, and giving our honest opinion or our point of view. It can be hard, like I said, to admit we prioritize being liked. Another way to know is by feeling a strong sense of personal responsibility. Again, if you're feeling responsible when someone else needs change and you turn yourself inside out, reschedule, accommodate, etc., because you feel that personal responsibility, you might be pleasing. Just become aware of it and then notice and then think about what could you do instead. The fifth way that you can know is when you find it difficult to express your needs, your opinions, or your feelings. And so a quick hack here could be even just writing them down versus saying them out loud, or even creating with the person you might be in relationship with, how you can create a space so that you can talk about what really is truly on your mind without judgment. Another way that you can know is you're constantly seeking approval, reassurance, or validation, or praise even. That's a big one. And I think I mentioned this on last week's episode. Most of us as a human being, we have doubts that we are or have enough, we're smart enough, good enough to be doing the job that we're doing, etc. And if we could just agree that we already were, we would not need to seek that approval, reassurance, validation, or praise. Now, is it nice? Absolutely. But it comes from a different place and a different energy and a different feeling. Okay, so another way that you can know if you're a people pleaser is if you struggle to set boundaries, right? Or if you feel guilty when you do. So the classic is to make up an excuse because it makes you feel better than the fear, than feeling the fear, which feels worse, or the guilt of saying no, right? And I think we've all done that. And so part of this, and we'll talk about this later, is part of the way forward here is to get the courage, to muster the courage to be able to do the things that feel hard, to choose our own discomfort, because being a people pleaser doesn't always feel good either. All right. Another way that you can know is if you find it difficult to express your own needs and your own opinions or your own feelings with others. So again, imagining that meeting that you're having when other people are talking about, and maybe a senior leader says their opinion, and then they're asking for yours, and it just seems easier to agree. That might be when you find it difficult to express your own need or your own point of view. Okay, another way you know is when you tend to avoid conflict at all costs. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here and share something that could be really useful for you is just have an agreement in place. You have to take some courage to do this, but even start in small ways. It could be in your personal life where you say, you know what, I'm about to share something that I'm feeling really incredibly uncomfortable with, and I'm willing to do that at the risk of my discomfort because this is really important. And just being able to begin there. And then the last way you can know is when you feel anxious or find yourself preoccupied about what others are thinking or feeling about you or what opinions they might have of you. And so I put this one last and I did it on purpose because I'm seeing this come up a lot with my clients, and thinking about what other people are thinking about you is always a waste of time because you will never ever know what they are thinking. Even if they were going to tell you, it probably wouldn't be what you're making up in your mind. So I'm going to give you a full disclaimer here. I am not, and I've said this before, I am not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. However, I am a helping professional. And if you were to use a scale of, let's say, always, often, occasionally, rarely, or never, and you were to answer those 10 ways that you can know that you're a people pleaser, you would have a strong sense of those developmental areas and be able to take steps from there to lead more effectively and more skillfully. Some questions you might ask yourself in the moment: what am I being asked to do? And is it mine to do? What is my motivation here? Do I feel I can say no? Where can I practice where I can say no? What am I avoiding or pretending not to know? So sometimes we know, or at least I'm going to out myself. Sometimes I know that I am people pleasing, and sometimes I'm okay to do that, and sometimes I'm not, and I have to address that. And the last question is, if I say yes to this, what or whom am I saying no to? This could be your family. You could be saying no time after time to your family, to your well-being, or to your own commitments to yourself. The gym quite often comes up. Eating healthy quite often comes up when I'm working with clients in this one. So asking these questions can help us explore our own motivation, and it can be really insightful to learn more about why we people please. Also, exploring these questions can help us see any, I'm going to call them like quote unquote conditions that we are placing on another person, which is really important to notice because when there are conditions, let me tell you something, it's indirectly and really about you, not about them at all. So if you're pleasing because you're expecting something in return, that is a condition. It's not coming from a place of joy. It's not coming from a place of happiness. It's coming from a place of anxiety or frustration or fear. Now, as a leader, your role involves making tough choices and prioritizing the greater good of the team or the organization, even if it means disappointing some individuals. People do have different perspectives, needs, and expectations, and you cannot please everyone. You will not even, like, that is just not even possible. So you will have to make those decisions, prioritize your goals, which will not align with everyone. Living authentically and in alignment with our values can come at the cost of relationships, roles, or opportunities. So I just want to state that because that is a fact. It is not an easy thing to live in alignment with our values. When we constantly strive to please other people, we may not find ourselves, well, we may, when we're striving to please everyone else, find ourselves compromising our values, our beliefs, and even who we are, our vision for ourselves, for our team. Being an authentic leader isn't easy. It requires us to gather up the courage to be true to ourselves and make decisions aligned with our core values and goals, while also being open to feedback and willing to make adjustments along the way, because we're not perfect. So, how can we avoid the pitfalls of people pleasing? Well, there's a few ways to do that. The first is self-awareness. Take some time to reflect and identify where and why we're people pleasing. Awareness of our behavioral patterns and the emotions that we feel empowers us to make conscious choices aligned with our authentic leadership style. The second way is to set clear expectations and boundaries. As a pleaser, we may have difficulty in saying no, setting boundaries or setting clear expectations because we're more concerned with making other people happy. However, being clear is being kind to everyone. And if you're not clear on what your expectations and boundaries are, spend some time answering those questions and then communicate them to others versus having them left as unsaid conditions, which isn't helpful for anyone, including you. The third way to avoid people-pleasing pitfalls is to fierce self-compassion, asking for what you need and giving it to yourself. Don't make it anyone else's responsibility. So if doing this feels selfish, remember what they teach us on the airplane. Put our oxygen mask on ourselves first, because you cannot give what you don't have. So learn to accept and reassure yourself that doing and giving your best is enough. You are enough. Another way is to realize it's a choice. Leaders who always seek approval may struggle to make tough choices that might be unpopular but necessary for the team's growth and success. As a leader, we have to strike a balance between considering others' perspectives and also making those decisions based on what's best for the organization, the goals of the organization, and again, the greater good. Another way is to encourage open and honest communication. Instead of trying to please everyone, which we know can't happen, focus on creating an environment where people feel safe to express their thoughts and concerns and what everyone needs from one another. There's a little bit of a caveat here, because my belief is that if we had clear expectations, haven't set or reset clear expectations, and have open, honest, and communication, I really think there would be a lot more work done by the people paid to do it, because we've at least had the conversation. Okay, this leads us to giving and receiving constructive feedback. So instead of avoiding conflict, actively listen to different perspectives and learn not to take things personally. You do not have to make feedback mean anything about you as a human. It's feedback. What within the feedback can you take that can help you grow? This way, we can make informed decisions that consider the team's collective input without compromising the vision and priorities of the organization. Another way is to delegate tasks and responsibilities. As a pleaser, we're very likely to be more concerned with avoiding conflict than ensuring the right people are focused on the right work or assigned the right set of tasks. When work isn't delegated clearly, it can lead to frustration, confusion, and ultimately failure to meet our organizational deadlines and goals. Then it will be a problem. And the last way is to build a culture of trust and accountability within your team. When trust is established, team members feel secure in expressing their opinions, in knowing that their input is valued, and in turn, holding individuals accountable for their actions ensures that everyone takes responsibility versus you taking all of the responsibility for their part in achieving the team goal. By fostering a culture of trust and accountability, you can empower your team to thrive while minimizing the need for people pleasing within it. So as I wrap up today's episode, I want to emphasize that being an effective leader doesn't mean trying to please everyone all the time. It means staying true to your authentic self and creating an environment where everyone can contribute and bring the very best of themselves to the work. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode today. Be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with other new leaders in your network, especially if you see people-pleasing tendencies that they might not see in themselves in the way that you do. Until next week, take care of yourself, take care of your team, and remember, you have the power to inspire change in yourself and others at any time. All right. See you next week.
Thanks for listening. Your feedback is a gift. Please rate and review with your honest opinion. Subscribe and share with your colleagues, especially if you've worked with me and found value in the work we've done together. Connect with me in my favorite places, LinkedIn and Instagram. My website is Cynthia Jamieson Coach, all lowercase, all one word, .ca. Until next time, make it a great week.